agenda. But it is absolutely true that the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood on not just the media, but on our politics, the infiltration of them within the Democrat Party, the infiltration of them within the Republican Party, the infiltration of them within the conservative movement, they have been infiltrating these apparatuses. And so you have a media apparatus that will bend over backwards. And the proof of that is our own experience. How many times have we had the media do the bidding of the Muslims when we have been attacked and shut down and threatened? Like in Sioux Falls, what did the media do? They did nothing but simply...
They interviewed the guy. They interviewed him and made him out to be the victim, not us.
Yes. Exactly.
All right. Logan, I sent you the Roseanne file. Clean that up, bleep it, put it into the replay. We'll put the clean version up. I apologize, folks. I should have known better. All right. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol walked free on Saturday after prosecutors decided not to appeal a court decision to cancel his arrest warrant on insurrection charges. The impeached leader waved to supporters and bowed as he walked out of a detention center south of Seoul, where he had been held since January 15th. He remains suspended from his duties, and his criminal and impeachment trials continue over his short-lived imposition of martial law on December 3rd. The Seoul Central District Court canceled Yoon's arrest warrant on Friday, citing the timing of his indictment and questions about the legality of the investigation process. In a statement, Yoon thanked the court, quote, for their courage and determination in correcting the illegality. The main opposition Democratic Party criticized the prosecutor's decision and urged the Constitutional Court to remove Yoon from office as soon as possible. Prosecutors could not immediately be reached for comment. Some 55,000 Yoon supporters rallied in Seoul on Saturday, while more than 32,000 demonstrated against him, the Yonhap news agency reported, citing unofficial police estimates. This anti-Yoon protester said his release seemed like something that was outside of common sense, while this Yoon supporter said she burst into tears when she saw him walk free. Still, the public remains largely anti-Yoon. 60% of respondents to a Gallup Korea poll released on Friday said he should be removed from office, while 35% opposed removing him. In his impeachment trial, the Constitutional Court is expected to decide in coming days whether to reinstate or remove Yoon.
Key U.S. ally South Korea, as you can see, is suffering internal troubles as the United States turns its focus to Taiwan more and more. Welcome back to More War Monday here on the Rob Maness Show. And we're live on Worldview Tube, our X Spaces simulcast, Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social Plus, Amazon Fire, Apple TV now, and Roku. Well, South Korea's turmoil over the impeachment and imprisonment of President Yoon continues to rattle the peninsula as the government faces fighting massive wildfires, too, that have broken out all over the country. The U.S. intelligence community has also released its annual threat assessment last week amid outrage over the fake signal chat scandal, highlighting China as stands out as the most state actor, most capable of threatening U.S. interests globally. But still, it's a weak assessment that needs to be accomplished again under the Trump administration, in my opinion. Late last week, a leaked Pentagon memo signed by Secretary Hegseth called for the U.S. military to prioritize resources against China, labeling it the sole threat. The guidance emphasizes troop presence and warns against a potential Taiwan takeover. Hegseth also reaffirmed Washington's commitment to its alliance with Japan while visiting Tokyo on March 30th. He specifically called out China again, saying that the U.S. and Japan will stand firm in the face of aggression and coercive actions by the Communist Chinese. Retired Colonel John Mills is back with us today to discuss all this and more. Mills is a national security professional with service in 5 areas: Cold War, peace dividend, war on terror, world in chaos, and now great power showdown one more time and the fight to save our republic. He's the former director of cybersecurity policy strategy and international affairs at the Department of Defense and a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy. And don't forget, his latest book, War Against the Deep State, is a must-read. You got to go check it out. You could get it on Amazon because these are uncertain times, and he's somebody that understands what's going on. John, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Hey, Rob, thank you. Always an honor to be on the show.
Well, hey, man, I've been tracking on this South Korea president and this turmoil going on on the peninsula almost since it happened, but only because I follow you on Getter and X. You are almost the only person that has been covering this on nearly a daily basis. What is really going on over there? Do we have an ally that's in serious trouble of losing its freedom?
Well, yeah, and a lot of the America First people, I think, are getting it wrong. There's a lot of ignorance on South Korea, and that's what's going on. Is there's a communist coup going on, and it started back in November, aided by who? USAID, which is funding the National Election Commission in Korea, and also this Association of World Election Bodies that happens to be based in Korea, both USAID funded. So the Democrat Party of South Korea, that's what it's called, is a communist leaning organization. Very, very nasty. And they've essentially, the President Yoon of the Populist Party, they have 108 or 109 seats of the 300 in the legislature. They should have a lot more if it wasn't for election malfeasance. It's looking like funded by USAID. So he called a martial law, which he is allowed to do under the Constitution, last November. Why? To raid the Election Commission. But a lot of people said, oh, martial law, oh, that's bad, oh, that's horrible, and just moved on, weren't paying attention, weren't understanding what really was going on. I mean, there was a lot of America Firsters, but it was Steve, when I talked to Steve Bannon about it and was on his show multiple times, that's when people started to understand, we got something else in play and going on. And it was the populists who really took to the street. Now, one of your clips said something about a 35% oppose his removal from office. That's actually, those are bad numbers. It's if you look at the polling, the Populist Party is polling more than the Democrat Party. The Constitutional Court is trying to make sense. This is just weak. There's not a whole lot of precedent in Korean law for what's going on, but there's about 30 impeachments that have been given to the Constitutional Court by the National Assembly. So far, I believe 9 of them have been thrown out. Later this week should be the time when President Yoon's impeachments are addressed. But so far, 9 of the impeachments have been thrown out. And we'll see. But the You got to thank the pastors who rallied their flocks in Korea. You had populists who really seized upon the Stop the Steal theme and campaign, and they've been out in the streets in mass. So, again, America Firsters, some of them are, just getting bad information or don't. America First doesn't mean we're shutting the doors isolationist. What does Korea have to do with us? It has a lot to do with us. Probably one of our most trusted allies, if not our most trusted ally.
Well, yeah, as I've observed all this, John, I'm thinking to myself, have the North Koreans infiltrated this this political party that's now throwing all these impeachments?
The Chinese. It's the Chinese. It's the Chinese. You got a weird, see, a lot of people most people are totally ignorant of Korea, period. And even I did a tour in Korea in 1992 or 1982 or 1962. I know everything about Korea. Yeah, Korea's changed a lot. Okay, so everybody needs to update their viewpoints. And the Democrat Party of South Korea is communist. It's not North Korea anymore. It's China. They're actually shipping in Chinese police, just like in Hong Kong. And this is a coup in progress. And a lot of, people say, well, we have all these troops over in South Korea. It's a shrunken remnant of what it was. We have we have an understrength fighter wing over there. We have an understrength division. It's a shadow of what it is. And a lot of this is what I have a lot of problem. A lot of these U.S. military in Korea, you have a high percentage of these, what we call tour babies, that maybe they have a Korean spouse and they do perpetual back-to-back tours and get exceptions to policy. And we say, because of that, we must know everything that's going on in South Korea. Actually, they're hiding. The communists are hiding in plain sight. And a lot of times these tour babies in the American military, they don't have a clue as to what's really going on. They're being lied to. And remember when President Moon, he was able to get into the presidency, total communist. He was able to get in 20, and he was out, or excuse me, 18. He was out of office in 22, fortunately. But he had 400 of the top military and intelligence officials arrested.
Wow. It's you're right. Matter of fact, the thing I'm most concerned about, to be honest with you, is they have a great shipbuilding capability in South Korea. And we need to leverage that because our ship manufacturing base, ship manufacturing is on my mind a lot lately as a guy that's a Navy War College graduate back when it was a good school. And we're facing, needing to deter China in the Indo-Pacific. And you can't do that without an adequate Navy and an adequate merchant marine, John. So what are the other really big jewels from South Korea that America Firsters, Trump supporters need to know about as to why we need to maintain that strong alliance and make sure it stays free and doesn't fall to Chinese communism?
Well, I mean, when you talk about chip manufacturing, they're part of the essentially the 5 key nations in the world for chip manufacturing are, of course, the U.S., the Netherlands, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. Those are the critical 5. And so they are one of those key 5. So China would like to get their hands on that for the chip manufacturing capability. They'd like to strip away South Korea. Now, one of the very racial and racist things that Democrats have done is Yoon, the president, has reached out to build a stronger relationship with Japan. And there's a lot of hard feelings from the Second World War, still a lot of unresolved issues. But Yoon says we're going to set those aside, and we're going to we're under duress from China, and we're going to work more closely in countering ballistic missiles and the North Korean and the Chinese threat. And the Democrat Party has really, really stoked the fires of racism and just been just over the top hateful toward the Japanese. and use that against Yoon, that he would dare to talk to the Japanese. It's the right thing to do. I know there's a lot of unresolved issues from World War II, but Yoon was willing to set that aside for the moment to be able to work a better relationship with Japan. But again, the Democrat Party of South Korea, they want a unified Korea, and they just want to kind of take over the North, but then under their rule, but then align with China. So you got a really weird dynamic. The days of just the North invading the South it's a lot more complex than that. And China would almost rather see the Communist Party of the Democrat Party of South Korea, because North Korea has been a perennial, although they are a huge reason why Russia is still in the war effort, is because of North Korean troops. There's now at least a second, if not a third tranche of troops, but also the war factories in North Korea are working 24/7 to build war material for Russia. But at the same time, North Korea has always been a real wild card, even for China. And frankly, they'd much rather see North Korea ruled by the communist element in South Korea, and no longer have to deal with this unpredictable mess in North Korea.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I can't blame them for wanting to do that. Honestly, especially if they think they have the Democrat Party in South Korea under control. Well, John, we've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll have a little clip about the fires. I want to get your take on that. I've seen some reporting on it, but really not enough. I mean, it's almost as if, South Korea, like you said, nobody needs to pay attention to that. But this is a critically important ally in the Indo-Pacific region, and not just that, but globally too, quite honestly. And we'll be right back with retired Colonel John Mills, former senior DoD official, talking about our Korean ally in the Indo-Pacific, and all things intelligence and China.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
At least 18 people have died as multiple wildfires rage across South Korea's southeastern region. The fires, some of the worst there in decades, have spread rapidly and forced more than 27,000 people to flee their homes. The country's acting president, Han Duck-soo, said Wednesday that raging winds were making containment difficult. He vowed to mobilize all available support, including receiving air assistance from the U.S. military stationed in South Korea. In response to criticism about a lack of equipment in the firefighting efforts, a spokesperson for the Korea Forest Service said the agency planned to secure more helicopters. He added that nearly 5,000 firefighting personnel were being deployed on Wednesday, as well as 87 firefighting helicopters. However, the agency later said the choppers had been grounded after one crashed on Wednesday, killing the pilot, according to media reports. Rescuers were seen working at the smoldering crash site while fire trucks sprayed water towards the smoke. Multiple blazes that broke out on Saturday are yet to be contained, gutting ancient temples and destroying homes. The government has designated the affected areas as special disaster zones and said the fires had damaged more than 37,000 acres. The safety ministry said dry conditions were expected to persist in the region on Wednesday.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and my guest is retired U.S. Army Colonel John Mills, and he is really a Indo-Pacific expert and my go-to guy when I have questions, and it really is one of the few Americans that are closely tracking on the South Korea issue. And John, when I look at the latest map, if you can believe it, the computer map where you see the fires, and it looks like the entire eastern side of the southern part of the peninsula in South Korea is ablaze. I mean, my military mind just suspects that the nature's not causing this. Any indications that this is something other than just wildfires?
Well, I think this has been a multi-year issue across the board in America, in Canada, the Maui fire. Obviously, we had a non-functional intelligence community and national law enforcement during the Biden committee years that blew off and ignored any possibility. But even back during during 2020, we had started seeing all these wildfires in the United States during COVID, totally ignored and blown off by federal law enforcement and intelligence. So I think you have to look at that we now have a unified effort between Islamic extremists and China. So I think this is not made up crazy talk about the fires in South Korea. This is a real issue. And there is just way too much citizen reporting inside of South Korea. These are being set intentionally and by provocateurs that are aligned with the Democrat Party and maybe even Chinese. And again, I've done a number of Gateway Pundit articles on this and been on the Bannon show about the nefarious behavior of the Chinese. These are intentional. And that's as we reset our intelligence community and federal law enforcement, we have to address this reality that we have extremist elements that are using forest fires to using them as mass terror weapons, and we've ignored it. And no, it has nothing to do with that. Oh, it's all natural. No, Maui was just natural. No, we got a Chinese satellite shooting lasers into the sky, and we have no idea what's on board those satellites. And NASA agreed to it, but we had no idea what was really on those satellites. So this should be now that we have 40% of the FBI released from J6 duty, let's make this a national priority.
Yeah, we have a national security directorate in the FBI, and they have international capabilities. So now that we've seen it's beyond just the United States now. This is an international strategy. It's obvious to those of us that practice warfare and have done so for most of our adult lives that the enemy is active. And that enemy is both the red and the green, part of the red-green alliance, right? I think the Chinese are I'm sure they're using Islamists that have infiltrated in various locations. In addition to the people that they've infiltrated into the United States over the Biden administration, right?
This is an intuitive, low-cost way to cause mayhem in America. Even the Japanese during the Second World War saw that, but even in the more modern times, numerous reports of Islamic extremists back to the early 2000s using this. And it was always swept under the carpet. Not enough information, not connected, no terrorist connection that we can, really, did you follow up and did you look into it? No. Well, then how can you say that? This is the lie of the FBI and the deep state party line. No terrorist connection. This is like New Orleans all over again. You had the crazy FBI lady with rings in her nose and her ears and all over the place saying no terrorist connection, and then she immediately was disappeared, and they flew in the new director of counterterrorism, and he goes, yes, it was terrorist connection. This psycho behavior that we've got to clean house of. No terrorist connection. Did you look into it? No. Well, then how did you know that one way or another? So, we got to get back to basics on intelligence and law enforcement.
Yeah, our national security and intelligence weakness really has, we're not out of the woods yet. Things don't happen overnight in Washington, D.C. or around the country in this bureaucracy. And the DNI's 2024 threat assessment was put out, I think, last week or so, and it seems a bit weak to me, John. Speaking of weakness, so is this the last shot of the Biden administration's weak on intelligence, weak on national security effort? I mean, even though the assessment does say that China's our greatest threat from a global military perspective, it still is very weak when it talks about things like, well, the Chinese government may not be able to control the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party owned businesses that result in fentanyl parts getting to the cartels and into the United States and killing hundreds of thousands of people. For instance, instead of coming in hard hitting and saying, we know this is what's happening, it's going to be part of our strategy and approach to work with our allies to end it. It uses goofy and squishy language like that. You had a chance to take a look at that thing, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the challenge is, a lot of people don't understand, out of the massive national intelligence community, in the DNI itself, you got Tulsi Gabbard, who is confirmed. I don't believe there's only 4 other Senate confirmees, those who receive Senate confirmation. So it's the National Counterterrorism, NCTC. That's Joe Kent. He has not been confirmed yet. He's acting as the chief of staff. You have the National Counterintelligence Executive. You have the DNI IG, and you have the deputy DNI. So I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's only 4 Senate confirmed positions. So I think we need more Senate confirmed positions, but that's the challenge. So Tulsi essentially has nobody in place, I don't believe, at this time. And you got Ratcliffe over at CIA, but he's only got 1 or 2 additional. Now, yes, you do have appointees, but they don't have the oomph of the Senate. She really needs her Senate confirmed staff in the DNI. And again, Ratcliffe, I don't think there's appointees, but he's the only political Senate confirmed at CIA. So we got a lot of challenges here. And I think this report still, to be honest, there's a lot of pen on it from the old crowd, and we got to get away from that. We got to get to real, I'm going to say it, unbiased, clear-thinking intelligence, not the same party line that is just repeated over and over again in the halls. And so I think that's one of the challenges. They've got to come up with, I would say at least 3 or 4 new Senate confirmed positions across the IC, not just the directors, but of the 18 intel community entities, but additional ones. And Tulsi needs, I would say, a couple more on her staff. Like the national mission manager that's a political, but they're not Senate confirmed. Okay, so you really need, I think you need 2 or 3 just in Tulsi's area, because hey, holy smokes, in Department of Defense, you got a lot that are Senate confirmed. I mean, I think it's like 50 or 60.
A lot, and Pete doesn't have a lot of his guys confirmed yet. Some have been through hearings and those kind of things, but namely Elbridge Colby hasn't been confirmed yet, even though he's been through the hearing and everything. And that key position is that's more important, I think, even than the deputy secretaries over there. But I think I wanted to get your thoughts before I have to let you go on this leaked letter that Secretary Hegseth did send out, giving guidance on the Indo-Pacific strategy, and that it's going to be focused on really deterring the PRC from a kinetic attempt on Taiwan. Very aggressively stated, in my mind, especially when you juxtapose it up against this Intel annual threat assessment document. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen that yet?
Well, yeah, it's I'm a little, people say it's leaked. I mean, I don't know that the total authenticity of it. But I mean, it aligns with what actually the administration has been pretty clear on, that they're going to focus on the Pacific. Shame on the European countries. 3.5 years, almost 3 years, 22, 23, 24, 25. Yeah. 3 years into the Ukraine war, they still have not increased their defense spending. Most of them have not. The Baltic states are very good. Poland's very good, but most of the rest, in the UK, well, we've been at 2%. Yeah, but if you've seen the god awful, their Whitehall makes the Pentagon look, just absolutely lean and efficient. It's just this utter bureaucracy. So, take away the Whitehall civil service oversight of the tiny, tiny UK. There's nothing. So, look, they're just saying, look, European countries, if you're not going to spend the reasonable amount on your military, you're on your own, and they're going to have to focus on the Russian threat, whatever that may be. But this is we're going to focus on the Pacific. But I still say I still think we still got to spend a lot more. And let me take that back. Maybe not necessarily a lot more. We'd have to spend it more efficiently. And I think there is, for decades, we've quibbled over the defense budget, but I think there's a lot of room to get a lot more efficiencies out of our spend.
Yeah, absolutely. And this turn to the Pacific, John, is critically important, and especially when you see the news coming out in the New York Times that the U.S. military has been basically directing the war in Ukraine, and Russia now thinks that it's in a proxy war with the United States. You and I have been saying that since before February of 2022. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you got a heart out here, author of War Against the Deep State, retired Colonel John Mills. Thanks a lot, John. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Rob. Take care.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll show a little clip about that leaked memo and go to the audience.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
And in the midst of the ongoing tensions in the South China Sea, an internal memo from the Pentagon has revealed that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has urged the U.S. military to prioritize all its resources in deterring China's annexation of Taiwan. Now, according to the Washington Post, the internal secret memo titled Interim National Defense Strategic Guidance, signed by Hegseth, broadly details U.S. President Trump's vision to prepare for and end potential war against China. Hegseth, in his guidance, has particularly singled out Beijing, saying that China is the Defense Department's sole pacing threat. He also underscored Beijing's potential seizure of Taipei, which must be prioritized over other potential dangers. The internal guidance also outlines plans for increasing the number of troops through submarines, bombers, unmanned ships, with a greater emphasis on bombs that destroy subterranean targets. The document also pressurizes Taiwan to increase its defense spending by up to 10% of its GDP on military readiness, a number that is significantly higher than what Washington and its allies spend on defense. Hegseth's guidance also called upon improving the defense infrastructure of U.S. outposts located in the Indo-Pacific. Furthermore, the Pentagon chief's interim guidance stated that NATO members must take on far greater burden sharing, and it said that the US is unlikely to provide substantial support to Europe in case of a Russian aggression, with its priorities focused elsewhere. However, the document stated that Washington will support its allies in Europe with Moscow's nuclear deterrence. On the internal security front, the Pentagon chief's guidance noted that US forces must defend the country from threats arising from nearby regions, including that of Greenland and Panama Canal. The document also directs senior military officials to take a more assertive role in combating drug trafficking, border protection, and deportations, while also ensuring access to the Panama Canal.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're on Worldview Tube, and we're live in our X Spaces simulcast and a whole plethora of platforms, including Truth Social Plus, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire. So go catch us there. And you can follow the Rob Maness Show on Rumble. The broadcast goes live there, and the taped episode gets posted up there, too, and on robmaness.com. We'd appreciate it if you check us out. And you can get the Colonel's Brief on Substack. And put your email in there, and you can get the show emailed to you every day that it's broadcast during the week, Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. So we appreciate all your support and all the efforts that you do to make sure that we can stay on the air and continue to bring you guests like Colonel John Mills, retired U.S. Army, who is an expert really on the Indo-Pacific. He knows more about the situation in South Korea, I believe, than the intelligence officers of the United States are aware of, because they're not paying enough attention. And hopefully Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Kent and the folks over at DNI will get that squared away very quickly. We know, and you just heard the reporting on Secretary Hegseth's memo stating that China, the People's Republic of China, the Chinese communists, are the sole pacing threat of the United States. And what that means is that all of our resources, all of our war planning, all of our budgeting is going to be prioritizing the United States and our allies' ability to deter China, specifically from kinetically trying to unify Taiwan with the People's Republic of China. And I don't say reunify because Taiwan's never been part of the People's Republic of China, period. Dot. Folks. So that memo coming out is dramatically different, as Colonel Mills and I pointed out, from this intelligence threat assessment that really is a holdover, I think, from the Biden administration that was just published out of the DNI last week, and is relatively weak, W-E-A-K, when it comes to how the United States should be. And the second memo that we just talked about, that's really coming out of the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy shop. That's going to be Eldridge Colby. We're just waiting on his confirmation. But when you read the writing, it sounds like it's written in his voice. And I know that some of his folks have already taken positions over there under USD for policy. And that's critically important because it speaks the voice of Donald Trump. And that's what the people voted for, peace through strength, and to focus on China as our primary adversary. So let's go over to the audience now. Last half of the show is going to be open mic. Shell, do we have some questions over there that I need to answer?
We do, sir. We have Joseph first.
Thank you, Colonel. Wonderful to hear from you. I just want to ask about the shipping industry in South Korea, which you kind of mentioned. Do you think the United States is going to have to do something possibly to secure those resources if things actually go sideways over there? And what do you think the administration should do to shore up the relationship and rebuild it after all the U.S. aid damage that has been done?
Great questions. Let's take it from the top here and talk about the ship manufacturing capability and America's quest to reestablish our ship manufacturing capability, and at the same time build our merchant marine fleet back up from its weak state of about 80 vessels. We only have 10 oil tankers that are national security oil tankers around the world now. And back up to in the tens of thousands. We had 10,000 merchant marine vessels at the end of World War II, folks. China has 5,000. And that's not counting their Coast Guard vessels, Navy, combat platforms and those kind of things. That's just the merchant marine vessels. And China can outbuild us 340 to 1 ships every year. Last year, or a couple of years ago, we took 5 orders in the United States to build merchant marine vessels. China had over 300. Over 1,500. So there you have it, folks. That merchant marine capability is critically important to be able to conduct the logistics that are needed in the Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean region in order to be strong enough to deter China. We don't want to go to war with them. We don't want to go to war with anybody, actually. We just want peace. But we know that without a strong America and a strong American deterrent capability, when you have communists in charge of a vast government that are being somewhat successful economically, quite frankly, and they still are, then that is a major danger. That's why even the weak intelligence assessment that came out of the DNI last week says finally that China is the most capable adversary that's capable of defeating the United States economically and militarily, and they continue to build on their capabilities. They've got a third aircraft carrier in sea trials now, and we know they've built a drone aircraft carrier in addition to the 3 main aircraft carriers, and they're working on that technology. They're really good on programmable drone technology. You've seen the civilian demonstrations of those where they're controlled by AI. So we have a lot of work to do, especially in the ship manufacturing. Now let's go to South Korea and our allies shipbuilding. Japan is another one. The reason I know about South Korea's shipbuilding is because I interviewed John Conrad, and he built I think he said it was $1 billion ship. It's a huge ship in a South Korean shipyard. And the reason why I bring that up and why I'm glad you asked the question, Joseph, is because while we're reestablishing our ship manufacturing capability, we have to be able to build merchant marine vessels and Navy vessels, and we have to be able to get them out to sea and get crews trained and everything while we're increasing our shipbuilding capability. Look, we only have about 20 shipyards left in the United States of America. Like I said, we can only build 5 to China's over 1,500 merchant marine vessels a year. So we have to expand that manufacturing capability, but that also includes workforce development, finding and training and being able to pay this massive workforce, which is highly technical and highly specialized when it comes to ship manufacturing. So we're going to have to rely on our allies, is my point. And South Korea is one of those. And the United States needs to take a proactive approach like we are doing with Japan, When we come back from this next break, you'll see a clip about Secretary Hegseth in Japan yesterday, I think, on his way back home, where he made some very good, solid statements, because we have to ensure that our allies are able to help us with this shipbuilding while we're rebuilding our capability and reshoring that capability. And why do we want to do that? Because you can't always rely on allies. Here's the reason why. With Japan and South Korea specifically, if China were to choose to go to war with us over this Taiwan issue, where would be the first things that they attack and continue to attack? The closest targets to them that they can have the most effect on, and that's at the strategic level, those shipyards right there in Japan and South Korea and anywhere else that are close to there, because they know when you look back at World War II and study World War II after Pearl Harbor, you see that the United States Navy, the U.S. Merchant Marine, and all of our allies were focused on the logistics of getting these ships to sea so that they could deliver men and material to the appropriate location at the appropriate time as we continued to advance across to defeat Imperial Japan. And that is a massive undertaking that we just do not have the capability today. And when you overlay that on the fact that we need to expand places like our airfields, not make the ones we have bigger, but make new ones like we're doing on Tinian Island. We're refurbishing the airfield that was used to launch the Enola Gay, the atomic mission bombers, B-29s. We're refurbishing that so we have another airfield. We needed many, many, many more airfields. And as we continue to build out that capability so that we have the ability to spread our tactical and strategic air assets around so they're harder to target, we have to have the logistics ability to do what? Deliver bombs, bullets, fuel, and people to those airfields and to those ports where all these forces are located at. In addition to, we've got to be able to lift those forces to where they need to go in the right amount of time on the right schedule in case we do have to go. So that's a long answer to a very short but a very critically important question. I think I got them all. We got about a minute left to go to the break. Let's take one more question, and then we'll come back and take more.
We have Lucky Dog, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. I guess the question I have, you've been talking about the merchant fleet. Now, for a short-term solution for some of our warships, I read somewhere a couple of years ago, they were looking at getting frigates from, I think it was Italy. I could be wrong about that, but is that one possibility we may have to go to until we get our warship building capabilities back up? Thank you.
Well, that's a separate issue, warship building capabilities. As a matter of fact, under the first Trump administration, Lucky Dog, the Trump team did have a new frigate vessel laid out and was beginning to be built. And I believe the Biden administration canceled that program. I look to see as the Trump administration team takes a look at our combat naval forces, the U.S. Navy piece of it. They're going to be looking at a couple of things. One is, how do we increase the ship manufacturing for that, too, in addition to the merchant marine? Number two, can we bring things like that frigate program back out rapidly and get to production levels faster than we would be able to otherwise with a new clean, with a new fully thought out weapon system that has to go through the acquisition process? And then three, we have to reform the acquisition process. Look, you know, I was a tanker navigator, my first flying job in the Air Force. I flew on airplanes that were built the year I was born. I was born in 1961 or right around that area. We started trying to field a new tanker in this country over 20 years ago. And we did eventually field one. It's called the KC-46. I think it's the Pegasus. It's got all the bells and whistles and everything. But a tanker is just an airliner or a cargo airplane with more gas tanks, some more piping, some additional electronics. It's got a capability to offload the fuel to flying airplanes and those kind of things, and an extra crew member to do that called a boom operator. I don't know if they still call them a boom operator or not, but they still have that crew position. And it took us over 20 years to field it. We can't operate that way. We've got to fix our acquisition system. And quite honestly, my friend John Conrad talks about NAVSEA all the time, NAVSEA, that they're not able to get a ship completed in a year ever. Haven't done it for decades. So we've got a lot of work to do there, and there's like 83,000 people working at NAVSEA. So that's a huge workforce that we've got to get back to where we can build them reliably, quickly, and crew them. Not only have to, be able to build them, we have to crew them. So we have to train folks to do that. Well, we got to take our last break. When we come back, we'll see Hegseth talk about our ally Japan and how we're going to stick by them here in the Pacific. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday.
As you know, President Trump has said America will reestablish peace through strength. President Trump has also made it very clear, and we reiterate, we are going to put America first. But America first does not mean America alone. America's warriors stand shoulder to shoulder every day with their Japan Self-Defense Force counterparts. Our forces operate and train together across all domains to uphold deterrence. America and Japan stand firmly together in the face of aggressive and coercive actions by the Communist Chinese. We have a robust alliance agenda that will strengthen our deterrence posture, keep the enemy guessing, creating dilemmas for them, and ensure that we achieve peace through strength, as I mentioned. This means ensuring that we have the right posture in Japan and the right capabilities forward deployed here, whether permanent or temporary. America and Japan, we seek peace. But as my first platoon motto says, those who long for peace must prepare for war. We must be prepared.
報道関係の皆様におかれましては、上下無料が退場されるまでそのままお待ちください。
Made a show. It's More War Monday here on Worldview Tube, and we're live on our X Spaces simulcast, and it's open mic part of the show here. And as Secretary Hegseth just outlined very clearly, America first doesn't mean America alone. We are not isolationists, which is a contrary to a popular criticism on both sides of the aisle for the establishment politicians in this country and the bureaucrats that try to maintain their power and position in the unelected bureaucracy that are, quite frankly, feeling threatened by President Trump and the 47th president's current administration and their political appointees. That's why they're trying to take out people like Mike Waltz and Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., because the bureaucrats are trying to do that through their political people that are in elected office, too. That effort is still ongoing. So we have to make sure we're very clear in our messaging. And that's an example right there. Look, post-World War II, there's still a lot of hard feelings with the Japanese amongst countries, as Colonel Mills pointed out, in Korea, on the Korean Peninsula. But our allies, we have to publicly say, we're going to stand with you, and then do the action itself. And I think that's what Secretary Hegseth was getting at, because he knows that Japan and South Korea they are the front lines, really, right there, right next to us on Guam and Tinian Islands and the Marianas Islands and those chains, and Okinawa. We are all there together, so we have to be very clear to the Communist Chinese that we are going to stand together, work together, defend each other, and stave off whatever they try to do if they try anything militarily. And economically, too. Well, let's go back over to our audience. Shell is the host over there. Who's got a question?
We have cookies, sir.
Good afternoon. In talking with or about Taiwan, the two questions I have. One, would it be easier for the Chinese to take over Taiwan internally, through putting their people in charge and doing an alleged vote for it? And then the second question I'd have is what kind of capabilities did Taiwan have to withstand the main onslaught until America could jump in or other allies could jump in and help them?
Well, great questions. First of all, could China, the Communist Chinese, take over internally? Absolutely, they could. Look what they've done with Singapore, even though they weren't supposed to do that. Look what just happened. I think it was yesterday or the night before, reporting about 5 Taiwan Armed Forces military members being arrested for being Communist Chinese spies. And if I remember correctly, these folks were not down in the trenches. They were up at high levels of decision making on staff areas and those kind of things. So, so absolutely, the Chinese have made an effort, just like they are in South Korea with the Democrat Party in South Korea that John Mills was talking about. It's purely communist at this point. It's a Chinese communist version of communism, not a North Korean version of communism. And in Taiwan, they have been working for decades to infiltrate their politicians, get them elected, get their bureaucrats in the office, and those kind of things, because the Chinese approach is to not win a war by fighting kinetically, if at all possible. Their preferred way to win is to basically take it over without firing a shot. So we should expect them to continue to do that effort. Now, as far as capabilities go, you may have heard, I don't know if you heard in that clip with Secretary Hegseth or when John and I were talking about it, that we have demanded that the Taiwanese increase their defense spending. You know, they spend, I think it's only about 2% on defense. And just like with the NATO countries, we're taking the same approach here. Look, if you want us to be your ally, we don't want you to be a client state. We want you to be able to hold your own, but we'll help if that becomes necessary. But you got to be able to hold your own. You can't be a client state of the United States. So the Taiwanese have said that publicly in the last few weeks that they're going to increase their defense spending. I think the number was around 3.5%. But it really, most of the so-called experts that look at this say it needs to be even higher than that. Now, the United States did sell them F-16s. The F-16V is in Victor. And I believe just in the last 48 hours, we've delivered the first deliveries of the F-16 Victor, and that'll be adding to their F-5s, which is we use the F-5 in the T-38 version for training aircraft, have for decades now. Our supersonic trainers here in U.S. pilot training. So the F-5 is a very short range, not very capable. I'm sure we've hung all kinds of electronics on it, but it still can't carry that much. So, and I think they've got somewhere in the 65, 66-ish numbers of those. So they need modern weapon systems, modern platforms. F-16V will go a long way for that. I'd like to see them get into fifth generation platforms and buy those in addition to these F-16Vs because, they really need to be able to defend themselves. It will go very quickly. Based on all the wargaming that I've seen, it will go very, very quickly if they don't get their defense capabilities increased. And they've got M1 tanks, that kind of thing, ground forces, and that kind of stuff. But you know what? One of the places this is not sexy, but it goes back to logistics. One of the places that for the United States used to be the only capability in town of all the nations, modern nations, called joint logistics over the shore, the ability to invade over a beach and have the capabilities to do that. Well, you saw when we tried to use our capability, which is very limited now in Gaza, it fell apart, actually got 3 Americans killed. Well, the Chinese have developed these joint logistics over the shore ships that basically roll up, put their legs down, and become piers, and they are building a lot of them, which would be able to make them effective at doing an amphibious landing and being able to not only hold the beach, but move inland very, very rapidly because they'll have the world's best joint logistics over the shore capability, even besting the United States. So we have to look at that. The Taiwanese need to be able to defend against that. We need to improve our capability to do that and get it back on track so that we can do amphibious landings if necessary, especially in places like Taiwan. You might have to do that someday, or on other islands out in the Pacific. You have to at least have the capability in order to deter them so you don't have to fight. Let's take one more question before we get to the end of the show. Go ahead. Go.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Colonel, for taking my question. I want to touch on something that you've mentioned before, specifically in regards to the U.S. military, but I'd like to maybe expand this to compare U.S. military, vax-injured military, compared to what's going on with China. I know they used a different vaccine. They used their own vaccine. Did they experience similar vax injuries?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't have any information on that. And I'm not even sure if their vaccine was an mRNA vaccine, which is the source of a lot of the adverse reactions that we have seen reported on by not just civilian outlets, but also folks that were whistleblowers in the military, like Dr. Teresa Long and Ted Macy, and those kind of folks. They have reported things like the myocarditis issue, especially in young aviators, strokes, cancers that just seem to take off out of nowhere and appear out of nowhere in various systems in the body. So that's unfortunately, I'll take a look at that. And next time I do a show on this, I'll see what I can provide for you. Thanks for your question, folks. Thanks for being with us today. We've come to the end of this More War Monday. Tomorrow is Training Tuesday. We're talking about the economy. Totally different shift. Fisher Capital CEO Alexander Spillane. I met him a few weeks ago. He's going to come on and stay on for the whole show. We're going to talk about economics, why conservatives are right to want to buy gold and silver and those kind of things, how it can protect you. And it should be a great, great show. I look forward to it. I'm Rob Maness. I'll see you then.
You're watching Worldview 2.